pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We go slightly out of order, but we're going to give a special proclamation to give to honor Representative Scott Conklin, who's here with us. And once you come forward, and I'll read this. This has to do with the fact that Representative Conklin isn't just a person that says he's going to do things or says we should do things, but actually gets them done. And this is a perfect example of that. This has several whereases in it. Whereas on December 25th, 2022, that's just last year, what happened? Patton Township's Georgetown community was awakened by a massive sinkhole in the development, and then whereas the sinkhole caused significant structural damage to 18 units in the Georgetown community, which caused residents to be displaced for months, and whereas though the police, fire, EMS, Red Cross, Code, and other agencies responded quickly, the residents took a long time. They still needed a lot of support to get things back to normal as much as possible. And whereas the community with the commitment and dedication, he said, of Representative Conklin, Governor Shapiro's office, and other officials, they were able to secure a grant of $180,000 to help with the cleanup. So it wasn't just talk, it was action. Now, therefore, be it resolved
that Patton Township Board of Supervisors do hereby extend their sincere gratitude to Representative Scott Conklin for his persistent efforts to ensure funding and assistance to the residents of the Georgetown community. Resident Conklin went above and beyond to ensure these residents would have some financial assistance as they recovered from this ordeal. We truly appreciate all that you have done and continue to do for all of us here at Patton Township Community, a place for all.
and I forgot one of the whereases in the middle here. Whereas when calls for help went out, Representative Scott Conklin and his staff, especially Nicholas Heimbaugh, responded quickly, and the calls for help were, for fixing the damage were met by his resolve, and also from Governor Shapiro, and there was help that was needed, and it was provided.
So as this board, we would truly thank you for all of your dedication, your commitment, and being a man of your word. So thank you. And it's not about me. Come on, board. I refuse to stand here.
When they're coming up, well, when the board's coming up, if we could please take a photo. I just want to thank you all because, this is something that someone in my position doesn't get. So I want to thank you, but what the people really need to know is that this was done not only because of our office, not only because of Nick, but because of the staff of Patton Township. Without that information, without the board, the supervisors coming forward and getting this done as well, nothing gets done alone. It's not done by accident. It's done because of a lot of people very good people who care about this work together and make it happen. So each supervisor, each staff member, I want to thank each one of you because that information, that working together made this happen. So I want to thank each and every one of you. And because Pam never let that dog bone go. Where would you like us to put? There you go. Let's get it right this time. Thank you.
One of the thanks, Renee. One of the residents would like to say thank you.
Oh.
Hi, yeah, my name's Maria Trulio, and I was one of the residents of a still longtime owner and former occupant of one of the units at Georgetown. And I just wanted to say an enormous thank you to Representative Conklin and to the entire board, particularly Pamela and Amy, and also to Nicholas. As I was just telling Scott before the meeting started, it was actually 7 months to the day between when the sinkhole opened and when my property was officially uncondemned because of the extent of the repairs. And we're still working on some of the more minor repairs. And to be given a check in that amount to really help offset the enormous costs that all entailed, like most of my neighbors, I think all but one, our insurance covered almost nothing. My insurance covered 2.5 weeks in a hotel, and that was it. So this is huge, and it's concrete, and it's meaningful, and it was done so professionally and so quickly. I feel like everybody here really moved mountains, and I'm just incredibly grateful. They moved mountains in the right way, not like in the going under way. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you all. Oh,
Yeah.
we have to do this again.
Just wanted to get you one for that.
And this will be framed on my wall, thank you. In fact, this will be the only one that I'll ever have framed on my wall. Thank you all so very much.
Scott, before we have another commendation or appreciation letter. And then, Nick, where are you? What people don't realize, with Representative Conklin being as busy as he assigned one of his staff and his staff, all of his staff, we say thank you. But to Nick, who contacted and talked to the residents, talked to me on a constant basis, I can't even begin to tell you how this is moving forward without you. So our board would like to thank you with this letter of appreciation. It says, "Dear Mr. Himbach, the Patton Township of Supervisors are writing to express their sincere gratitude for your help in the Georgetown sinkhole. Residents were displaced by the sinkhole on December 25th, 2022. It became clear in the days following the incident that our residents would need additional financial help as they worked to recover from the disaster event. You worked with Representative Conklin and the Governor Shapiro's office to ensure funding to assist the recovery efforts. Your efforts during and after the events ensured the residents had some financial assistance while they worked to rebuild their homes. We are grateful to you for your efforts and your support of our community. We pride ourselves on being a place for all. Your efforts ensured our residents were never forgotten and that they could continue to call Patton Township home. So with our board signature, we all say thank you, Nick.
Thank you. Conference got to be in here too, right?
rows in the middle.
Oh, there we go.
This way I look taller on this side.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One thing I'll say, without Pam, none of this would have happened. She's the absolute best advocate this community could ever have. So if anybody deserves a round of applause, I think Pam should get one. Please, let's give her a round of applause for all of her wonderful advocacy for your community.
It's like when I used to play. It's like when I used to play tennis and used to trip over the net.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
I'm going to use this opportunity also to remind residents that it might be a good idea to check your insurance policies to make sure that you do have coverage for this kind of thing. It's relatively inexpensive, but if you don't have it, you're not covered. It's the same thing with water that seeps into your house that in local flooding. You're not covered under most policies. So read your policy and make sure that you have that. Okay. Thanks for coming, and we'll proceed now. Yes. Where is that? Suzanne, you have a proclamation to read? Go ahead.
You got it?
Okay. Well, who's doing the Heritage Month? Who's doing the Spanish Heritage Month?
We're just going to pass that, but we're pushing for time.
Okay. So, announcements, have a proclamation to read, if we're ready. Okay. So, the Patton Township Board of Supervisors proclamation for the National Suicide Prevention and Action Month. Whereas with September being recognized as Suicide Awareness Month, the National Suicide Prevention and Action Month proclamation was created to raise the visibility of mental health and proactive suicide prevention resources in our community. We also want to start the conversation, destigmatize it, and help connect people with the appropriate support services. And whereas according to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, suicide is the second leading cause of death among individuals between the ages of 10 and 34, with more than 48,000 people dying by suicide annually in the United States. And whereas according to Hope for the Day, with an average of 132 suicides completed daily, and each one directly impacting 100 additional people, including friends, service members, family, social media connections, and neighbors, we can safely assume everyone has been impacted by suicide. And whereas the Patton Township Board of Supervisors publicly places its full support behind those who work in the field of mental health, education, and law enforcement, and whereas we encourage all residents to take time to understand mental health through education and recognize that we need to take care of our mental health while we take care of each other. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Patton Township Board of Supervisors do hereby proclaim the month of September 2023 as National Suicide Prevention and Action Month. Proclaimed this 13th day of September 2023 by Patton Township Board of Supervisors.
And Dr. Magruder does this every day. He's a psychologist and by trade, and so he works on this kind of problem all the time. Yes.
We have another proclamation for Hispanic Heritage Month, which runs September 15th through October 15th. Whereas the National Hispanic Heritage Month celebrates the rich cultural traditions and honors the significant achievements of our Hispanic communities, and whereas the Hispanic community makes up the largest ethnic minority group in the country, and the fastest growing minority group community in the Commonwealth, and make valuable and defining contributions in all aspects of society. Whereas many brave Hispanics have served with honor and distinction in military conflicts since the Revolutionary War and continue to defend our country today as members of the armed forces, and some of these outstanding servicemen and women whose names we will never know, but their service and sacrifices will not be forgotten. And whereas 61 Hispanic Americans have received the Congressional Medal of Honor, the highest award for valor in action against enemy forces. And whereas Hispanic Americans are public servants holding posts at the highest levels of government of the United States, including one seat on the Supreme Court. Now, therefore, for their inspiration, talents, culture, traditions, and deep connection to family, faith, and community, all of which contribute to the greatness of this country, the Patton Township Board of Supervisors hereby recognizes September 15th through October 15th, 2023 as Hispanic Heritage Month in Patton Township, and encourage all residents to acknowledge Hispanic contributions and achievements throughout the month. Proclaimed this 13th day of September 2023 by the Patton Township Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
Well read, both of them. Thank you.
I guess we're ready to proceed. Next item is, and we also have a proclamation that Rosh Hashanah will be celebrated September 15th to 17th, and Yom Kippur from September 24th to, well, it's a one-day holiday, and that's coming up. And those are two high holidays in the Jewish faith.
Right.
And does anyone have any suggested additions to the agenda? Okay. Now, public comments. Anyone who has a comment about anything that doesn't have anything to do with what's on the agenda tonight, we welcome your comments, and you have 5 minutes or so to talk about it. So, looking for any volunteers. Seeing no rush to the mic, we'll proceed.
Ellie, please.
Oh, we do? Great, thanks.
Hello.
Hello.
It's me again, Chelsea Malai, live over on Gaynor Drive. We were gone for a few weeks, and I see y'all were out and started putting up the fence that we had talked about earlier this summer for to divide like the property lines. I had called Monday and I think I spoke with Amy about a few questions I had, and I just thought maybe before the winter months hit, I'd like to get them reiterated. I guess my first question is, we were gone for a few weeks, and it looks like when we got back, it looks like the fence is completed. And so my question was, why is it not going from corner to corner of the township property? It just stops at the end of my property, which makes me feel rather targeted again. So I'd like to see that continued to the end of the townships. You'd have to look at the map probably, but the end of the township's corner, you guys took the fence down the hill to one of your corners, and then it just stopped. So that's my first question, if that could be addressed, if it's not already part of the plan.
So Elliot, we have representatives from the RAC on the call that can answer Ms. Malai's question. Susan Wheeler's also on the call. So if one of the members of the RAC would like to unmute themselves and address that question, that would be great. Or
Yes.
Susan.
Yeah, this is Ken Hickman from the RAC. The fence line that was put in is in line with the committee's recommendation, from the previous meeting and what was, approved by the board. I'll defer to Susan on the particulars of it.
Yeah, when the fencing was put in, the recommendation from the RAC was to replace the existing fencing, which was put in when the park was first built, and none of that fencing goes around the full perimeter of the park. It was placed in areas of the park that are at the top of slopes in certain areas. So everywhere that you see that, there's a piece of fencing near a slope that goes into the detention basin. There's a piece of fencing that's above Whisper Ridge that goes right at the top of that slope. And so when we looked at the fencing that goes behind the 4 properties on Gaynor Drive, we identified those 4 properties that actually have slope right behind them. So we stopped it where the slopes end, and then there's the green grass starts, which is a flatter area. So it was never the intention of the RAC to have the entire park fenced in, but rather have it consistent so that we have the fencing along areas where we're at the top of slopes throughout the park.
Okay, well, I would like that to be reconsidered, because the neighbor to, like my other side where it stops, there is a slope, and it's not as steep as the slope directly behind my house, but it is a slope, and it's also part of that area. So even when speaking to Amy, it's like it was reiterated that it was put there, so I would also be kind of reminded that it's a divide because I was encroaching on your area. But I think I cooperated pretty well. I spent a few $1,000s putting things in there and taking things out of there, and all I'm asking is that you guys consider, if you're putting the fence there, not to single me out by ending it at my property corner, but by taking it to the end of, which isn't very far at all, but by taking it to the end of the township's corner, like where the sidewalk ends. Because, I mean, like I said before, nothing was there 19 years ago when I built the house, like nothing. And now I understand that the township doesn't want to keep up with everything, like planting grass and such, but all it is woods now. And so if you're going to just barricade off part of the woods, I feel like you should do the whole little area, because it just looks more professional, and it also looks like I'm not being singled out. So I'd like that to be something that would be considered.
Without talking about the fence, as far as singling out, what I'd single you out for is that all the excellent work you've done in suggesting that things needed to be done.
Thank you.
I feel just the opposite, that we feel that you've been very helpful in this area.
Well, thank you.
And
I
that's all
appreciate that.
that's
I haven't felt that way, so thank you.
That's my only thought about it.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
No, I would just like to second what Elliot said, and I think that you are providing an amazing example for your 2 young children who are here with you.
Thank you.
So, yeah. I know it hasn't been easy, but I know you've cooperated and you've done some hard work on this.
I've really tried, and I really love my neighborhood. I love the community there for the most part. Like 99% of them are amazing. But also, like, there's other people in that area that are encroaching with items that have not been addressed. And I don't want to write a letter and complain about them and ask for them. I just want you guys to observe that and come out and be like, okay, I shouldn't be the only one to have to remove my items, but maybe they should perhaps too, and have the fence be a good way for us all to realize where the property boundaries are. So.
It's something we'll have to consider.
Okay.
I would also, that when the next time there's a vacancy on the Recreation Advisory Committee, why not put your name in and ask to be nominated?
That means a lot. Thank you. I appreciate that. One more part of contention while we're here is, I know you had spoken about walking the paths. I was just wondering, I was trying to look at the agenda quickly. I was wondering if anything had been moved along with maybe perhaps cleaning up the paths a little better for.
So we need to talk with the solicitor, because that's in people's deeds and it's private property. So we need to
Right.
speak with our solicitor, Betsy, and I haven't had a chance to do that yet, to find
Okay.
out what, if anything, the township can do to get those areas cleaned up. But we did make a note of that, and we are working
Okay.
on that.
And you're right, it is in our deeds and we are required. I was just wondering if there's anything that is going to, make us follow through. So, okay. So is this something you all can consider, and I should come back to a future meeting to hear about, or is this
So
a firm no? Or
it probably would be appropriate for the RAC to discuss this further. So I'll speak with Susan. Susan's actually on the call
Okay.
to see when they might be able to discuss this. But the RAC will take this up, and then they would make a recommendation to the board if there's anything additional they would like to do.
Okay, I appreciate it. Well, thank you all. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Were there any other public comments? Not seeing any, we'll proceed. And we're up to presentations and public hearings. And I guess the next thing is the Spring Creek Watershed Commission.
Yeah, so the Spring Creek Watershed Commission submitted their 2024 budget to each of the participating municipalities for review and approval, and they've asked for that approval by November 15th. The budget is proposing an increase in municipal contributions from 10 cents per capita to 15 cents per capita, and for us, that would mean a jump to $2,347 per year from $1,565 per year. So we have Doug Mason here tonight, who's our representative to the Spring Creek Watershed Commission, to answer any questions the board may have and address the request for the increase.
Yeah, I'll be happy to try to answer any questions. I'm not really an expert on the financial end of it. Kevin Abbey hasn't showed up yet. I don't know if he's on Zoom or, I don't believe so. But I'll be happy to try to, the budget's pretty straightforward and simple, but we, pretty much balances what we're bringing in for 2024. So I don't know if you have any questions, if I can.
Dan?
Doug, I don't have any questions, but I do want to express our board's appreciation for your service on the Spring Creek Watershed Commission. I, as a supervisor, am the designated representative to the commission, but as you know, frequently we have scheduling conflict on Wednesday nights. So it's quite often that the commission meeting conflicts with the Board of Supervisors meeting. So your service as our alternate is really appreciated. I can also say that we are grateful for your reports at the end of every commission meeting, very thorough and detailed reports indicating the work that the Spring Creek Watershed Commission is undergoing and doing. I think for the rest of the board, I would recommend that we agree to the 5 cents per capita increase over our dues. It's not really dues, but it's our contribution.
Is that a motion?
Our township contribution to the operation of the commission. As you can see by the budget, really the only major expense that comes out of our contribution is to pay the AmeriCorps member who works with the Watershed Commission. And with that, unless any other board members have questions for Doug, I would move that we approve their budget and the increase in our allocation from 10 cents per capita to 15 cents per capita.
Okay, we have a motion. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's done then.
Okay, thank you for your kind words. And I have to miss the meeting this week. I've been subpoenaed to appear in a trial in Arkansas, so I'll be out of town for a week, but I'll be back next meeting. But we won't get a report this time, unfortunately.
Have a safe trip.
You have to watch CNET.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Thank you very much.
Next is the Half Moon Township Zoning Officer Agreement.
So we put this on the agenda following a little bit of a discussion last month to look at revisiting our agreement to provide zoning services to Half Moon Township. We've been providing zoning services for quite a while to Half Moon Township, and we wanted to revisit this in light of some issues, and Nicole is here tonight, she can speak to some of these, but some issues Nicole Harder's been having with some of the elected officials trying to interfere somewhat in some of her work. Since the meeting, I actually reached out to Amy Smith, who's in the audience, the clerk for Half Moon Township, to discuss that this was going to be on the agenda. And I also spoke with Patty Hartle, one of the supervisors from Half Moon, who's out of the country this evening. But Amy asked, and we're all in a unique situation, and we're going to talk about this in your next agenda item, but we're all in a situation where we're all kind of in the throes of having some planning issues because of things going on at CRPA. So Amy asked if we would be willing to reconsider dropping out completely from the zoning officer services agreement and instead doing something that's a compromise. And the compromise we came up with, which we put in the agenda, would be minimum of 4 hours a week, max of 6 hours a week, and that the Half Moon Township's in the middle of rewriting their zoning code, and Nicole and Amy and Mark Bokel, who's been their planner, have been doing that work. Mark leaves as of Friday, so we don't want that work to fall just on Nicole and Amy. We think that that work probably needs to be paused, not that we're telling Half Moon what to do, obviously, but we don't want Nicole to be, asked to handle the heavy lift on that. And at the minimum and maximum number of hours we're proposing, Nicole would then be able to do the core work she needs to do. The, inspections, reviewing, communications. She does attend all of their planning commission meetings by Zoom. And I think, if we're gonna consider continuing this relationship, I think we should continue it only for a year. And I think we should put some language in that agreement that says, I know Amy's been trying to keep the elected officials kind of in their lane, but trying to have some language in that agreement that gives us the right to revisit this if it becomes an issue. Again, we're trying to be neighborly. I'm trying to be respectful of Nicole's time. Both Half Moon and Patton are going to be undergoing some changes because of the planning situation, and that's going to put more onus on Nicole to do some different things here that maybe Leslie's been doing, because Leslie may not have time to pick those things up as well. So I'm trying to not, completely cut off our neighbors, but also be respectful of Nicole and Nicole's time and, not overtaxing what she's doing as well. So Amy's here from Half Moon if you have any questions for her, if she wants to provide any input, and Nicole is also here to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions or?
I do just have a
Sure.
short statement, if that's okay.
Come on up.
So as Amy said, I do work with Nicole on zoning matters and truly value the partnership we have established. Nicole is very thorough in her review of permit applications and other related documents and plan reviews. She's always willing to meet with our citizens to discuss potential projects and assist them in determining whether the project is allowable under our zoning ordinance. I enjoy working with Nicole and appreciate the board's consideration in renewing the contract with Half Moon Township. Thank you.
Nicole? The board is looking to you for some kind of, how are you feeling about this?
I feel like I can call to the principal's office tonight.
We appreciate all that you do, and hearing from Amy, we understand the urgency, but we also know to take care of you, and this first came to our board because of some issues, and we were very concerned on that. So we need to hear from you.
And I'm aware that there's potential that you still maintain this sort of like working relationship, and so I also don't want you to feel like you need to disclose the hardships in detail. Again, I think we had enough information, but if there's anything you want to, share.
Yeah, I too also like and enjoy working with Amy. I think we've established a great working relationship. Again, the mass majority is trying to get the Board of Supervisors to understand that they cannot communicate with their residents on a zoning issue. That needs to be strictly brought to me. I'm comfortable after speaking with Amy doing the 4 to 6 hours. The rewrite that we have been working on with the ordinance is very time consuming. And at times, I don't really think that Amy and I have the level of expertise that we should be doing that. That should be something that possibly should be outsourced to an appropriate individual that should be able to do that. Also, I took the liberty and provided it to Amy. I don't know if she provided it. I came up with a list of 11 possible plans that we could possibly be seeing here at the township at any time. And knowing the inevitable of the next item up for discussion. And if we don't know what, level of planning that we're going to get, that is going to come back onto myself, maybe Ken as a help out. But I'm comfortable with the 4 to 6 hours max with them, and then putting the rewrite on hold.
So what I'm hearing is that even though there were some issues, we shouldn't call them subscriptions. And so that way we can continue the relationship but sunset it for discussion in a year.
I'm in agreement with that plan.
I just want to make sure there's that line, when you are not happy, that this board can choose to pull out of that contract.
That would probably be something that we would have to.
Yeah, that's something that, if you choose to move forward with this, in this direction tonight, what we'll do is, Betsy Dupuis on the call, we'll sit down with Betsy and have Betsy draft some language, and then we would send that over to Half Moon to have their solicitor look at as well, and craft something that both boards would be comfortable with.
Dan?
Well, I spoke to this at our last board meeting already, prematurely, I guess, because we hadn't really, didn't have it on the agenda, but since it was under discussion, I thought it was okay for me to express an opinion. I haven't changed my opinion since then. I think that Half Moon Townships has a responsibility to provide their own zoning officer. It's not our problem to solve. I have no problem that we entered into a partnership with them to share our zoning officer back in 2015 or whenever that was. Ken was zoning officer at the time. The duties and responsibilities on our own zoning officer have increased in Patton Township since that time. They've not decreased. We have a lot more development going on than we had 2015, 8 years ago. Nicole has already mentioned the potential number of plans that are coming up that we have to deal with and review in our own township. I heard and I asked Nicole if this is correct, that at times Nicole comes in to work here early in the morning. Is that correct?
Yes.
Like when? 5 a.m., 4 a.m.?
5:30, 6.
5:30 a.m. so she can get her work accomplished. I mean, why should we put our own employee through that kind of stress? I have no problem with continuing our partnership through the end of this year, through the end of December, and with the understanding that Nicole's commitment will be reduced to whatever the 4 to 6 hours maximum per week until the end of December. And Half Moon is going to be electing a couple of new supervisors, or a couple of supervisors, whether they're re-elected or new people. Let the new board, their new board in January, confront their own problem and find their own solutions. So I'm against continuing our partnership with Half Moon Township after the end of 2023.
Anyone else?
No, go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, you go.
Go ahead.
I'm still trying to collect my thoughts.
Oh, you want me to go?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I appreciate your perspective and your strong feelings about the personal space and the personal needs that any employee has. And I respect that first above everything. But I see this as not just a problem, but as an opportunity. And I'd like to speak a minute to the community about what I shared with Nicole a little bit earlier when I came in. I've watched Nicole over the last 6 years, mostly over the last couple of years as she's taken the lead on the Open Space Stewardship Committee, but I've also watched a little bit on the zoning, so I've seen that. And I have seen just an amazing, I guess I'll call it a blossoming. It is, she has grown in her responsibilities, and and very capably grown in those, and also grown in her contribution to this community and to this, this township. And I think that one of the measures of growth, one important step for all of us, we all know this, is to know when your self-care is being challenged, to know how to speak up about that, to know that it's important to speak up, to know how to speak up, and to follow through and work with others, which is how you make solutions to that. Any job is, and it's new, you're constantly being pushed. You have been pushed a little harder and a little faster than is probably typical, but you have shouldered it with immense maturity and capability. So I just want to make sure that that is communicated. I completely agree that in December this needs to be reevaluated, and it needs to be taken, the arrangement that we have with Half Moon needs to be taken very seriously. And again, we're going to depend on you, Nicole, for your honest assessment, which I think you have given us up to this point. So I want to commend and thank you for your work so far. Thank you.
Would it be reasonable then to extend this to December?
Well, I think that's
Well,
sort of what
but
Dan
then
said.
leave it open to discussion at the beginning of January to see if we wanted to continue it or it needed to be terminated at that
So
point.
our contract or agreement that we have now with Half Moon expires at the end of this year.
Okay.
And I think what we don't want to do, right, is wait until December, your December meeting to make the decision that we're leaving Half Moon, because that leaves them in a huge bind moving forward. So I think if the board is amenable to looking at drafting an agreement and trying this for another year on different terms, that's great, and we can start working on that now, and have Betsy reach out to Half Moon Solicitor and speak with them. But I think if you're inclined to think that this is something you don't want to entertain further, we should make that communication to Half Moon sooner rather than later, because again, I don't want to leave, given what's going on with CRPA right now, I don't want to leave anybody in a bind. So this would give them enough time that, and we might have to look at with various things going on, depending on the state of permits, that Nicole, we might have to extend Nicole's time into the new year anyway to finish up permits that come in December.
Help me understand that, extend time.
So if Nicole starts, if there's a permit or a plan review or something that Nicole's working on that comes in December, and she's not finished with it by the end of December, we don't want to say, oh, we're done, see you by December 31st. I think we would want to say, okay, we'll see this one through until, and transition out then, right? There would be a month or two transition out period.
Well, then maybe we should make a 6-month or a few-month extension, and that way, if we continue to see problems, we're gone. But if we see improvement, which is what we're hoping for, that we just don't cut it off before that improvement has a chance to show itself. Would that be all right with you? No?
No. I guess my wondering is, like, and I know my work is different, but I think about like 4 hours, 4 to 6 hours, like what, does that feel like sufficient amount of time to devote to a particular project, for example? I know a project entails a lot of different things, but I'm wondering, like, you're starting and stopping, all right, I'll give you 4 hours here this week, and then try to pick something up the next week, 4 hours. I'm just wondering about the utility of that.
I'll go with Amy on it. So Half Moon does not get the level of plans like we do. Half Moon's plans are little minor subdivisions, you know, lot consolidation here. So it's not to the extent when Leslie and I are reviewing a plan, say for Toff Trees Golf Resort, where we just reviewed that the other day for 3 hours. 4 to 6 would probably be sufficient. Half hour here for zoning inspection, quarter hour to a half hour, depending on what the discussion is with the resident on a proposal that they have for either a zoning permit or wanting to meet. We typically keep our meetings 15 minutes, half hour for any potential subdivision plan that we have a pre-application meeting on. So I think 4 to 6 would be okay. But again, it's probably gonna be a trial and error. Just, I mean, I may have to get with Amy and say, hey, the 4 to 6 just really isn't working, and then we'll have to go from there. But
Yeah, I think I remember when this was first brought up, and this was probably just a protectiveness in me. I was like, well, let's just sever this relationship. And I think I pulled back from that. And I like this compromise if we feel like that's something that seems manageable in the short term. You know, I agree with Dan in that if we need more of you, you know, moving forward, given our development, I think we need to not only be focused in on the short term, but also the long term. And so as much time we can not extract from you like you're a commodity or something, but I want to make sure that we're thinking about that. And so, again, for me, I think it's also important to maintain relationships, and I'm hopeful that Half Moon recognizes that, you know, they don't, like, some degree of just like gratitude that we're trying to work with them. And so, therefore, moving forward, you know, with elected officials especially, making sure that they're being respectful of you and the work that you're doing. Yeah, so that's sort of, again, I'm okay with this plan that's been developed to extend this to the end of the year. What are we talking?
24.
Into 24, but probably with an ability to be able to pull out if necessary, should things not be working out.
Elliot, Betsy DePuy has her hand up.
Oh, thank you.
She's on Zoom. Betsy.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to quickly say to the board that I think in this agreement, because it's a contractual arrangement between you, there's any variety of things that can be addressed. I think staff has outlined most of that, but to Sutan's last question about timing, certainly we can restrict it, right, to 4 to 6 hours. And maybe, you know, I know Nicole suggested, well, we could go back and see if we can do more, but maybe that's where Half Moon has to start the process of transitioning into another zoning person. You know, speaking practically about this, not between these two townships, but anywhere you go, it's a transition process that has to happen anyways. And so not just because you have projects in play, but because you got to have somebody on board who knows what they're doing. And I'm not sure in today's market you can just go out and find a zoning officer. I mean, we're having trouble finding planners. So, you know, I think I understand the board's concerns about the past behavior and what has happened, but I also think there are ways this agreement can kind of maybe bridge that gap, and maybe, as Elliot has suggested, behavior will get better and we'll see a change, and maybe you can continue this relationship beyond, you know, another year. But I recognize that when people are involved, there's no way to predict the outcomes. But I want you to know we can craft the agreement as tightly as you want it to be so that we can preserve some of these issues and an out for us if that's what needs to happen.
Okay.
Betsy, while you're still on, the suggestion to going to the end of the year, doesn't our contract state that we need to give Half Moon like 60-day notice of any changes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a notice requirement in the agreement. That's right.
Okay, so if we decide tonight to let the contract agreement expire, And these 3 months is more of a review of how things are going to go. Can we have in our contract not to continue into 2024?
Well, right now, you have a contract that terminates the end of this year. So if the position of the board, I think Amy's already stated this, is to get out, I think you just say politely to Half Moon, we're not going to renew, and you move on. If the issue is you want to create somehow the next 3 months, if I can say October, November, December, as sort of a trial period, to, we'll agree on 2024, but if something happens in these next 90 days, I mean, I guess you could make that argument in the agreement. We can craft it however you want to, I guess. The question for you, it'll end up coming back to you, and in any event, to say, what is the egregious behavior that causes you to say, we're done? Is this a last chance agreement? Is this the scenario where you got one shot at this, and if you screw it up, we're done? I guess you could certainly craft it that way. I hadn't thought about that, but that's certainly not something you couldn't do.
Thank you on that. To my colleague who brought it to our attention that Nicole is coming in at 5:30. I just can't grasp putting her in that situation when we have things getting ready to come up. We have developments coming in, major developments coming in that we may need her expertise on. So I'm still pushing to the end of the month, to the end of the year, and then we'll see what the board decides after that. That's my decision.
Is it necessary to send the 2-month notice?
Yes, I would.
If we're, or can we just let it expire if that's the feeling on December 30th?
I think we should send the 2-month notice to give them a heads up. And like if the will of the board this evening is you don't want to continue with this further into 24, then we need to send notice tomorrow. I think to give them as much notice as possible.
So basically, right now, we're saying we're okay essentially with the plan to extend into 2024, whatever plan was developed, or we need to say, no, we want to let it expire.
Right.
It's basically those two things we need to talk about as a board right now.
Right.
Obviously, I'll support whatever we decide, but I really don't want to, I'd rather not set a specific end and say that we're through, period, if there's a chance that things can work out. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but go ahead.
Yeah, and I know that Bill's got his hand up too, but I've had my hand up for a while. I really want to turn the question to Nicole. Yes, we certainly can decide among ourselves, but I would like to know, before we make any final decision, what your thoughts are, given the opportunity to either look at this as a problem or as an opportunity. Missed opportunity twice, I should have done that. And I also wanted to know, thank you for coming in so early. How many times have you done that? And do you feel that that is likely to continue? Or do you feel that because of the conversation that you've already had with the two Amy's, that that scenario is now out of the way? So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I want to give you that opportunity to weigh in. I think you, of all of us here, know the situation the best.
And Sutan has a follow-up.
Yeah, actually, if I may interrupt, and I don't want to be patronizing, like we know what's best for Half Moon or we know what's best for you, Nicole. I do think though you've established that the time. Reducing the time, the allotted time for this new plan seems sufficient to do the job duties. Is that correct? Did I hear you correctly? I just think venturing into asking her input on, basically this is just like policy or contractual stuff. I I don't want to put you in that position of answering a question for something really the board needs to decide on based on our other engagements and stuff like that. And so it just feels, again, you can answer if you want. It seems uncomfortable to me to have you answering a question of whether you feel like we should maintain this relationship or not based on your own unique experience, and understanding that you may still have to go back and, well, you're still going to be working with them, and so don't want you to say something that then causes any more sort of like having you be the lightning rod.
And thank you for that qualification. I didn't say it, I didn't mean to put you in a hard spot, but again, we're talking back and forth, and we're talking about you, and that's, and all that you've put into this, and all that you've accomplished, and the way that you've handled it, which is really quite admirable. And so, I don't know how to phrase that question, but to give a nod to your feelings, or Sutan, maybe you could.
Well,
are you saying that she should not have any
right.
say in it? But just wanted to get Sutan to.
Yeah, I think, Nicole, we've heard the concerns, and I think, I mean, you could honestly step out of this position and we would have to fill it with somebody, and they would sort of be going through potentially the same issues. And so I don't want to say it's like less about you, but bridging out from you. Nicole, I just think it's a larger sort of like issue that I think we've heard. And if you don't feel heard yet about your concerns, I think we've heard her concerns. I just don't know if it's, I don't want to put that responsibility on her making a determination of whether we should continue this thing, because again, I just think it's really up to the board and all of the other things, priorities that we have. And so I think you're framing it well. I don't think there's any other way to frame it that doesn't make her sort of like a lightning rod or a spokesperson for what needs to happen. But yeah, I think you're really speaking to, you want to make sure she feels heard and has some input into the decision making.
Well, from what I've heard right now, and it seems like she's done some incredible problem solving, I would vote to continue the contract, or to, but if...
I'm in agreement with you.
But if I said that, and if Nicole said, well, if tomorrow she comes in a week later and says, I feel uncomfortable with that, then we actually, I would say we actually have until October 1st, or September 30th, whatever, to give notification. So I guess I wanted to express that. You know, I mean, what I see is problem confronted, problem expressed, problem solved really very admirably and very remarkably. But
well, one thing I need to say here, the problem is just bigger than the two townships, because we're looking at the regional issue of planning. And are we going to, it used to be that the county took care of all this, and the Center Region pulled away because at the time, it wasn't believed the county was doing the job that was needed. I don't know if that's true anymore. That may be part of the investigation. I don't know that that's, but I do think that it's going to be important for us to have some regional cooperation in whatever we decide. And so to make a hard and fast decision tonight in the opposite of that may not be in our best interest.
Bill Burnett, one, taxpayer, and two, I'm also the vice chairman of our planning commission. And I'm just going to tell you, we got a lot of stuff that's coming up. So, I mean, I'll support Nicole in any way. She does a tremendous job for us and does a great job for us. But we have a lot of large projects coming in and coming down the pipeline. So I'll just say that. I am glad that I'm not in your position, and but you know, if it was me to be extending something where it was a bad situation, how many chances do we have to give? I mean, sometimes I'm having this issue with my daughter, so maybe I'll just get the drive up of how many chances should I give before I take something away. But in this case, you know, if you are going to renew something like this, me as a taxpayer, because I want, and especially somebody that knows Ms. Hartner, I want her to be happy because that affects my volunteering and getting whatever projects are being done. And yes, we need to be concerned about her happiness, but as a taxpayer, I also want to make sure that she's being taken care of so that we're not losing her down the line based off of something else that's going on and an unnecessary stress. So that's my 2 cents.
Anyone else?
Amy, or somebody from the audience, someone else. Also from
Hi, good evening. My name is Fedor Sinev, and I'm a resident of Park Forest Village. Now, I apologize in advance. I didn't get a lot of time to sort of, you know, investigate the issue and inform myself, but I didn't get much time. I'm sort of worried about the erosion of regional government, like he said, you know. Like I don't want to put any unrealistic, you know, deadlines or like work requirements on people. I don't want to do that, but I also don't really want to see this whole, you know, I don't want to see unintended side effects or like sort of like a cascade effect, you know, where you have people starting to like leave and do their own thing, you know, because I kind of know from experience walking around and biking that there's a lot more planning that needs to be done, you know, among the townships, and it, you know, it is a bit concerning for me, but I don't know what the deal is, but I hope we can stay in Center Region and their planning agency as long as possible. And we do need more cooperation, you know, and we do need more resources. But thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dan.
Thank you for your sentiment. I think the board agrees with you. We support all the regional governmental shared responsibilities through our Council of Governments. And I don't see this particular issue as in any way a degradation of our commitment to regional cooperation. That's in response to your comment. I'm just curious if there are any other townships that share their zoning officer. Does Harris have their own zoning officer?
Harris has their own, College has their own, State College has their own.
Does Benner Township?
No, Benner has their own.
So we're the only township in our Center Region that is actually sharing our zoning officer.
Yeah, zoning. There's an engineering arrangement amongst College and Harris, and they actually decreased that because the College side of the equation, they had too much going on. So they decreased it for 2023. They cut it in half with the intent that Harris would eventually transition out of that arrangement. So similar to what we're talking about here, we could look at, if you wanted to still stay in the agreement, create 2024 as a transition year out of the agreement for 25.
Okay, my opinion is still the same.
Question. Since we have another board meeting this month, can we just table this tonight and gives us an opportunity to just go back over this and review it?
Yeah, absolutely. You would have until technically probably the middle of October to make a decision, to give them the full 60 days notice if you didn't want to renew, because you have that October first meeting in October. So yeah, you could absolutely table this. This is sort of tied to the next agenda item that we're going to talk about, and it's unfortunate because that next agenda item is sort of being thrust upon all of us in the Center Region at this time, but there's all these moving parts. But yeah, that's totally fine.
So can I make a suggestion to my colleagues that we table this until our next board meeting?
Is that a motion?
It's a motion.
Second.
It's moved and seconded that we table this until the 27th. Any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. We'll discuss this again in 2 weeks.
Right now, no.
Mine was a no.
Oh, okay. It's a 4-1, then we'll still discuss it in 2 weeks.
Thank you, Amy, for coming to our meeting.
Thank you.
And again, I want to apologize. I didn't want to shut down things. I also just wanted to make sure, Nicole, again, whatever decision was being made, it wasn't optically looking like you're displeased. And so we're like, all right, well, let's get out of this, or you're fine with it. And so let's stay with it. Again, just making sure we want to definitely hear out the concerns of our staff and partners, but making sure that in whatever decision that's being made, it's seen by our community that it's really this board of 5 making that.
Okay. You're great, and we just want you to stay great.
Thank you, Amy.
Which brings us to the next item. So that's D then, local planning service.
Yeah, so as the board is aware, we're members of the Center Region Planning Agency's local planning program. Half Moon, Harris, and Patton are the last 3 members of that program. We currently buy 50% of Leslie's time as our planner. Half Moon buys 25% of their planner's time, and Harris buys 40% of their planner's time. As the board is aware, the planning agency is in the middle of a major personnel shift. Mark Bokel, who is Harris Township's planner and has also been filling in Half Moon Township, is leaving to become Harris Township's manager. That leaves precisely 1 land use planner left in the agency, which is Leslie, which is our planner, plus Jim May, the director. Jim May's announced his retirement, and he is leaving at the end of November. So we had a meeting, the municipal managers met with Jim May and Eric Norenberg to talk about the future of the agency and how we move forward. One of the items that we talked about at length was the local planning program, and if the local planning program survives this transition in the short term. It's not to say it can't come back in the long term, and one of the things we talked about a little bit before the meeting, sort of after the meeting, is we have a great sustainability planner, we have transportation planners, and maybe we play to the strengths of the agency right now because we are having a terrible time finding planners at the county level and at the regional level. They haven't filled the Half Moon job for 1.5 years. Mark's been doing 2 jobs. So we were asked at the meeting, Half Moon, Harris, and Patton were specifically asked to discuss if the current local planning program is meeting our needs and if we see ourselves continuing with that program into the future, in the near future. Because if Half Moon, Harris, and Half Moon say, right now under the COG Articles of Agreement, we would have to give a year's notice to get out of that program. If Half Moon, Harris, and Patton say, we're all giving a year's notice, we want to get out of the program, CRPA can turn around and say, you know what, we'll cut it, we'll give you 6 months into the new year to transition you out so you have enough time to figure out what your needs are, but we'll just drop local planning and focus on what we can do. It's a double-edged sword because we at one point had one of the best local planning programs in the state. I worked in Lancaster County, which had an excellent planning department, and our planning department was second only to that agency. And it's unfortunate, but it's also the reality that with 1 land use planner left, Leslie's going to be asked to do Half Moon, probably some of Harris because Mark has to transition into the manager role, and Patton. And that's not fair to any human to ask them to do 3 jobs when they have a family and other things that are going on. So the conversation, and this isn't a conversation that we have to decide this evening. We do have to give something back. We're going to meet again in October. The conversation that we need to have, and as I'm looking at, we talked last time about doing the roadmap for the Public Works Department and looking at their long-term strategic planning, succession planning. it's evident to me that we also need to do the same now for the engineering, planning, zoning side of the building. We need to sit down and figure out long-term our succession planning and engineering, our succession planning and planning, and how we're moving forward. So my thought process, and Leslie and I have talked before this meeting, because it's awkward to have Leslie sitting in the meeting when we're talking about perhaps leaving her agency, but we've talked, and the thought process would be if the Board of Supervisors were to say, talk about it and say, we're going to give a year's notice, and then you could decide if you want to keep it at 50%, knowing we're probably not going to get 50% of the time in the short term until they fill some of these empty positions. That gives us time to do some long-range strategic planning, to sit down in the first quarter of the year and look at this, and then we could go back and say, if there's still a CRPA local planning program, we could say, okay, we've done the analysis and we think that, yes, we want to stay in. And you could take back your intent to leave. I think we have other options. I've anecdotally talked to State College Borough, who has their own planning department. Ferguson has their own planning department. College has their own planning department. I think there are other options. I think one of the other things, I've been here 4 months, I don't really know how the whole operation 100% works right now, which is why I like to buy some time so that I can understand better how all the pieces fit, and wanting to do some long-range planning for the township and how that fits is we want to consider, are we at the tipping point? Do we need to bring someone in here to be our planner? And have someone in-house, which is what College and Ferguson and State College did years ago. So we want to open the conversation this evening. You in no means have to make a decision tonight. You can continue this conversation on the 27th. I just have to be able to take back to CRPA and to this next meeting in October sort of our sense of what we want to do. And again, it's, I think, in some ways pretty unfortunate that we're at this position because CRPA is a great planning agency. But CRPA has other issues, I think, and I think that if they can focus on the strengths of the organization, that may help bolster some of the other, help deal with some of the other issues that they're having in the short term, which in the long run helps all of us. So I'm opening up the discussion. It's, like I said, it's all of this, the pieces are moving fast, and there's just a lot of strategic planning that we need to do, and we need to be able to hit pause so that we can do that and also continue doing the work that needs to be done here, because we have a lot on our plate right now. You're going to see, plans for toff trees and the rezoning request and other things coming through, and we just have a lot on our plate right now.
Yeah.
Short bottom line for me is yes, I think I like the idea of a strategic plan to figure that out. But I do have a question, since both Ferguson and College Townships have their own planner. Does Patton Township have enough work for a full-time planner?
If we, I think,
enough money.
Well, that's a different issue, but
yeah, that's
right.
That's a Larry question.
Yeah.
Well, I want to
Is there enough work
cover that also.
Yeah.
to justify a full-time planner for Patton Township?
I would say, coming into this from the other side of town, I did not realize that there was not the level of long-range planning happening over here that happens in College and Ferguson and State College. And we've been growing a lot over here. So yes, I think if we had someone who wasn't just focused on, Leslie does plan reviews, and then we do educational pieces for the Planning Commission. But if we had someone here full-time, we could look at doing more long-range things. The College Township is in the middle of working on some form-based zoning and some other kind of forward-thinking things. And I think we're a little reactive in that we are just focused on what's put in front of us because we have to be, right? So this would give us a chance to be able to pick off and do some of these small area plans and some other long-range planning items here.
So then can we ask financially?
So financially,
What are we contributing financially right now?
we're contributing 1/2 of Leslie's salary and benefits.
Got it, that's helpful.
So to increase from, obviously, from where we are today, to hiring a full-time person, it would be another half. It would be twice that much. So what that number is, I don't want to say in that open meeting.
Right.
But can we absorb that? We would probably have to look at fees, planning fees, to make sure that we're getting enough in planning fees to help offset some of that cost.
Yeah, we're able to bill for the planner's time for plan reviews. So we bill the developers back for that. So that offsets the cost.
So I don't think it's as big of a deal financially as we think it is, but so there's other options of maybe doing what we do with our zoning officer and splitting a person, or we hire a person full-time, but a quarter of that time
Gets shared with somebody else.
we share with another person in the region, because if you don't have the local planning agency in the COG, we're not the only ones that have the issue of not having a planner. However, I do think that we could make a good argument that we have enough work for a full-time planner, especially with some of the projects that are going on. Palm Trees West is definitely going to be a big area, and that's not even talking about the resort. That's it's talking about everything that they've been talking about the last 8 years that I've been here.
Right.
Kid had a comment too.
Yeah, we used to, purchase a full-time, planning share, and that was reduced during the 2008 slowdown. So basically what you're seeing now is it's just taken, this many years to start to ramp back up to where you're getting to the point where, it's probably right now Leslie is doing more on a half-time, share than what would have been actually happening, because, we are growing and we are getting back to the point where, there's enough going on in the office. Because as Larry said, prior when we had a full-time planner, we had an assistant engineer and so forth in the office, was somebody here that could answer that question when one of the residents came in. And we're the face of, we're the local government. People come in, they want to know what's going on. They want to see that. And with the staff in place able to do that, that really is what the folks are looking for when they come in.
One thing I wanted to say, I don't see it every day, but I just have complete confidence in what Leslie's done for us.
Thank you.
And
thank you.
Like 200%. And so
we're not
to
trying
get
to
that
take
out of
you.
the way.
Yes, we are.
Let me get that out of the way first. And second is that if we're doing good planning, the planning should be to at least have the staff capability to take care of the things that we know are coming without even worrying about the fact that there are other things that we don't know about yet.
Yes.
And yes, we are trying to steal you.
Edit that out, CNET.
What?
I said edit that out. CNET.
Get out. So ever since the Patton Crossing project, I have been aware of this lack of long-range planning. It was brought out by the residents of Park Forest, and in fact, one of those residents then became one of our board members, Anita Tees, and the question that she and a couple of other people kept asking me, what's the big picture here? We were just focused on 30 acres, and that long-range planning has come up again with affordable housing. In a perfect world, we would keep the COG planning, which then there would be somebody, a point person that could handle things that have a larger purview and are more long range. But the affordable housing was also kind of a very stark example of that. When we went to our hearing for the Patton Crossing, and we had proposed a certain percentage of affordable, we called it affordable housing, one of the comments that we got from people in Patton Township in the audience that day, and even before, why is Patton Township the only one doing affordable housing? People seeing it as a challenge, something that they don't want. That's something that we need to deal with. That's a whole other issue. So, wow, long-range planning. And if having a planner full-time would allow us to do that, kudos to us. But I think we need to be very cognizant, and I certainly think this planner sitting right here is very cognizant of the larger area and long-range planning, because she's done it on a larger area. She was at the county at one time. So, 2 cents about the long-range planning, critical.
I mean, I'd like to continue discussion, but can I propose then that we move to take up the recommendation and move to provide a year's notice to the COG that Patton Township intends to leave the local planning program at the end of 2024, and that we wish to contract for 40% of the planner's time.
And I'll just make it clear, I only put the lesser amount in there because I don't, unless planners suddenly start falling from the sky, which I don't think they're going to, I don't foresee us being able to get 50% of the time, and I'd rather not wait for a refund.
Yeah, I don't want to pay for 50% and then at the end, then give us our money back.
Right.
I'd rather pay less.
Right.
I'll second the motion.
And what are the implications of doing this? What is the message that we're sending? Because I don't think we really want to eliminate
Right.
The planning agency or say that we are.
We should actually probably vote on the motion and then have the discussion.
Well, we have the discussion.
We're having the discussion and then we're going to vote on it.
So, Elliot, as I understand it.
The motion was.
Yeah.
The motion, there was a motion and second.
And then I was second.
That we
Oh,
sent
So
a
the
notice.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant, you're right, absolutely right. I thought it was to just have.
It's unlikely that I'm right, actually, about anything.
My apologies, yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
So as I understand it, we're contributing, we're supporting half of this agency, this entity, I guess, and so.
We're supporting half of one person.
One person's, okay.
And then we're supporting a portion of the
Their whole operations.
administration of that agency. Yes.
But as I understand it, the agency right now is in disarray.
Yes.
And they're going to need to find their own footing in moving forward, though it's not our responsibility necessarily to sort of like wait out that process, because the implications could be that whatever we're paying for example, it's not getting done.
Right.
And there's, again, getting back to the idea that we ourselves are trying to engage in, yes, short, but also long-term strategic planning. We have a lot of development coming up. We need individuals who are going to be able to devote enough time to support the needs of Patton. It makes sense then that we pull out, hire someone full-time, and it's not that we can't then have that person collaborating across municipalities, or if, PA gets on better footing, that we can't collaborate or something like that down the road. But it makes sense preemptively to not be reactive and be
And I
proactive.
think the message that you're sending back to CRPA is not, this is not a vindictive, we woke up yesterday and decided we're out, we're done. It's very much a reaction to the disarray that they're in. The conversation piece I had with Jim May aside from outside of the meeting that we had, was this is an opportunity for CRPA to do its own strategic plan and figure out and play to its strengths. And it's hard, right? Because I'm a big champion of local planning. I've always been. You know, I see the value of that, and I think we all do, right? But right now, I don't think that's the service that CRPA can handle. And we have a comprehensive plan that desperately needs to be updated for the entire center region. And if they focus and play to their strengths, that's regional planning, which would be that comp plan piece, that's sustainability, that's the transportation piece. And the transportation piece is critically important because of all the money coming out of the federal government. So we're not abandoning our commitment to CRPA. We're just recognizing and acknowledging, and all of us would be recognizing and acknowledging that CRPA is in a bit of a transition, and this is an opportunity to reimagine kind of how we're all consuming and using planning services in the region.
But that's what confuses me, that, okay, we're saying that CRPA needs to be strengthened and has an important job to do, but we're leaving. And so...
I don't think
what am I
we're
missing?
leaving the local planning of it, not the regional planning. That will still be there. Transportation will still be there. The MPO is still there. The
Sustainability.
Sustainability is still there. So what Amy's trying to say is they're going through a transition in CRPA, take away the local part of it and let them work on all the regional stuff. Instead of, putting not enough time into anything, put enough time into regional, and we handle local ourselves.
And that was actually a conversation piece a bit at the meeting, because State College, Ferguson and College, don't have the region. They're paying for regional, and they haven't been getting much out of regional, so they've been getting refunds every year because they have their own planners. So the conversation was, wow, if the three of us decide to go our own way with local planning, and CRPA says let's focus on regional sustainability and transportation, then State College, and Ferguson are suddenly getting more out of that regional piece, and there's so much going on with the comp plan and the 537 plan and things that need to be done. So we still help bolster CRPA by helping them be able to, again, focus on their strengths and build up their staff.
So the problem is not what we're suggesting doing, but I think that the motion needs to reflect all that so that there's no confusion. For example, I think there's confusion when people say that they don't like affordable housing. What about calling it workforce housing? It might be the same building, but I think it has a different connotation. So I think just to say we're pulling out and leave it at that, I think we need to explain what that means.
We could explain. Certainly this is going to be at a meeting with the managers again, discussed, but I can also draft a letter from the board that says, in deference to our own need to do some long-term strategic planning for our engineering, planning, zoning, public works departments, and then also in deference to kind of some of the challenges that CRPA is having, it's our intent to spend the next year contemplating how we want to move forward, but we'd like to give our intent to leave just so we're preserving our options. I don't think that's saying that we don't have a commitment. And again, when this came up at the managers meeting, it's not something that was intended to be adversarial, the conversation that we had. Because again, if someone asked me if CRPA was fully staffed and there were no issues, I would say you're nuts if you want to drop out of CRPA. We get a lot of bang for our buck with them. We have a great planner. I don't see where the agency's failing us. It's not. Right? This is just because of the unfortunate situation that they face right now, and it's a challenge for them. And so I just think that, I think we could wordsmith it in a letter to them explaining our situation and our thoughts. And I can take that to the meeting that we have in October with the rest of the managers. I understand where you're coming from, Elliot, 100%.
I'm trying, what are the optics of it? Like, what's a newspaper going to say? Or the TV station going to say? And they love to jump on dissension rather than agreement.
Yeah, I don't think, I'm sorry, Sultan, I didn't mean to interrupt. I don't think in this instance that this is dissension at all. This is.
Well, I know that, but
And I think that, you're right, and I think that, when this gets explained, because eventually this will have to go before the general forum, right? And it has to be explained that Patton Township 100% still is committed to planning. We need to take care of our own house to make sure our house is being, looked after. So we need to kind of be able to hit pause so that we can use 24 to look at all of that.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think optically, there's a need. Optically, it looks like CRPA right now is not able to meet that need. And so we're taking that back into our own hands as Patton to make sure that we're still doing what we need to do, but that this is in no way compromising CRPA's larger, hopefully, mission to doing the regional stuff. And so as far as the motion before us, I don't know if any wordsmithing, I feel like we can vote on that, but I agree Amy can write a nice letter in outlining, the rationale behind why we're doing this.
And you can also state in your motion, if you want to amend it, just that you remain committed to the regional planning program and the other programs offered by CRPA. It's local planning that you're exploring your options in. That's up to you. I can wordsmith that into a letter, though.
Well, I'll put up a trial balloon and say I'd like to add that as a statement in our motion, as an amendment. Is there a second? Okay, there isn't, so we're not going to have that.
Second, I'll second.
You'll second it?
I just didn't think it needed to be motioned, but no, I agree with you. Yeah, I think it's good.
I can also word it that, we're providing a year's notice to leave just the local planning program.
Do we have to vote on this, or can we wait till you send the letter?
We have to vote on it.
We have to vote.
Yeah, I can't send the letter without you giving me the direction to send the letter.
And I think the people they can look at the meeting on CNET, promoting CNET right now, if they want to understand why we're doing this, but I think we should move forward.
All right.
I'd also like to point out that there are 6 municipalities obviously involved in the COG. Only 3 of them have apparently sharing with the local planner. And nobody said that Ferguson and the borough and college were not amenable to cooperation because they have their own planning department. So I'm not worried that people are going to say
Okay.
that about us.
Excellent.
Yeah,
You ready to vote then? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair, may I request a brief recess?
Now, a brief recess has been requested, and I was going to suggest the same thing, so I'll second that immediately. We'll
Nay.
resume in 5 to 8 minutes. Meeting back to order. And we're up to public safety.
Yes, thank you. Good evening to everyone. A copy of the August report was included in your materials. You'll see that our officers stopped 173 cars. We wrote 25 traffic citations, 3 parking tickets, and handled 44 criminal arrests. Bike patrol was out and did bike 20 miles, did 45 business checks, did a personal stop, and then also a vacation check. A few of the arrests of note from the month of August. A 40-year-old male was arrested for possession of a variety of controlled substances. The male was intoxicated and was located sleeping in a parking lot of one of our township businesses. A 51-year-old female was arrested for forgery and identity theft. She had actually fraudulently obtained a loan using a victim's information to get that money. And a 27-year-old male was arrested for harassment and disorderly conduct. And those charges stemmed from an argument between himself and another coworker in which he was actually holding a weapon. He had a knife in his hand. There were 5 arrests made for retail theft. 24 arrests were made for minors law. Unfortunately, we picked right up where we left off the last semester. All of those are for individuals under the age of 21 attempting to purchase alcohol with a fake ID. So again, we're trying to get the word out there. I did speak with some administration at Penn State University and asked them to see if they would push out some type of a public service announcement that said, you know, do not use a fake ID. The stores will contact the police and you will get arrested. And they agreed to that. They said that they would push something out to the students. So hopefully we can try to get the message out because, again, unfortunately we picked up right where we left off last semester after the summertime. We did serve 1 warrant of the 4 that we attempted, and we conducted 29 vacation home checks. We did not have to use force during any incidents in the month of August. In community relations, Officer Varzel organized a child safety seat check and installation event out at Grayswoods Elementary School. We were assisted by the Center County Sheriff's Office and also Ferguson Township. We had 7 cars show up, and the technicians either checked or installed 11 car seats. So it was a pretty successful event. Started out kind of slow, but we had some people come towards the end. So. Officer Carter received a request to attend a birthday party for a 7-year-old at the Oakwood Park. Generally, if we receive a request like that, we try to accommodate it the best we can, particularly for Patton Township residents. Clearly, they understand if we're busy and we're not able to do that, that's not a problem.
Chief?
Yes, sir?
Does that mean I could have invited an officer to attend my 80th birthday
If
party?
if we get the phone call, we may show up.
Wow.
You never know. So it just depends.
Remember that.
You're not.
81, the 81.
Yeah, there you go. And
next
sure,
year.
Sure. But this
you.
one actually kind of had a close bond to Patton Township in that Officer Salade and Officer Suhu assisted delivering that child 7 years before. So there was kind of a special bond there, which made it even more important for us to make sure we had a presence. But we did attend his birthday party. It was kind of a neat story. So
Yeah.
Officer Tuskovich was very busy preparing for the school year to start as our school resource officer. But he attended the teacher in service at the middle school, Park Forest Middle School, where he presented to the teachers and the faculty and staff the district's emergency operations plan and also spoke about building safety in general there. He also did safety assessments for the Park Forest Middle and the Park Forest Elementary schools. Talking about Penn State students, during move-in, our officers were conducting some foot patrols around the complexes as they were coming in, helping out with anything that they needed, providing resources to them, any questions that they or their families might have. And then Officer Slade participated in the Grange Fair Law Enforcement Day, where she drove one of our patrol cars in the parade over there. So it's always a really nice event, very well attended in the Law Enforcement Appreciation Day there. Training department activities, Officer Schaefer and Officer Tuskovich attended tactical response team training. Officer Slade served as a counselor for the Girls Week out at Camp Cadet. And Officer Schaefer and Officer Snyder served as counselors for the Boys Week the following week. Our officers attended firearms training, and Officer McCaslin attended training on solo officer response to an active shooter situation. I attended a human trafficking summit, a child advocacy center advisory committee meeting, the Happy Valley Business Association meeting, and the Center Region Emergency Services meeting. And then Amy and I actually attended a kickoff meeting with PRI. And PRI is the consulting company that we have contracted with to help us find our new records management system. Again, we have a consortium with Patton Township, Ferguson Township, State College Borough, and Penn State University Police. The four of us own a records management system together. We are coming to the end of the contract for the current system. So we, again, are looking to replace that system, and PRI is the company that's going to help us search. They're right now kind of doing a needs assessment and interviewing some officers and some other key stakeholders, property folks, records folks, things like that, to make sure that we send out our RFP to the right companies and the right vendors and make sure that we get a really good system moving forward. So just starting. I will continue to keep the board updated on where we go with this, but like I said, we had our first meeting with them. They seem very competent to be able to do the work that we have asked them to do. So. Had a couple photographs. Thank you, Larry, for putting those up. Perfect timing. The first couple are of the event out of Grays Woods. That's the car seat event. Like I said, we had Patton, Ferguson, and the Center County Sheriff's Office there. The next photo is Boys Week out at Camp Cadet. So it has the counselors, Officer Snyder and Officer Schaefer. That's all right. I was wondering where we were. Okay. And then lastly, we have, again, the photo of the Girls Week. So there's the girls, Officer Slade with the other officers for the female week out at Camp Cadet. I don't know if you have the next photo. If you can, that's great. Oh, we can turn it maybe. The crown jewel of Patton Township community relations events is coming up here very shortly, here just in a couple weeks. So September 30th, 2 Saturdays, we're going to be in the parking lot of between Target and Kohl's along Colonnade Boulevard from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. So it's the Patton Township Children's Safety Fair. Sophie has done a great job of blasting out information on our social media, on our website. We've also been working with the school districts to put the information out as well. But an event that we are very proud of. It's the 21st annual. So again, it's amazing how many people show up to this. So we really hope that everybody will consider stopping out. Young at heart, doesn't matter. We want everybody to come and see, meet with the first responders in the community. We have police, fire, EMS, 911 center, state police helicopter will be there, weather permitting. But yeah, it's just a fantastic event. We have a lot of activities, a lot of free things to give out to kids. It's just a fantastic day, and again, we just hope, and Elliot can help us with this as possible, to give us a good day, good weather. As long as we have some sunshine, we're happy. So yes, we're very excited about that event, and we make sure everybody else can come out to it. Lastly, we just have our record list of calls for service for the month of August. We responded to 466 calls. That's up from the 413 we handled in July. 53 of our calls were for traffic-related offenses or incidents, and 41 were for school checks. And that completes my report.
Any questions? Thank you, as usual, for... Oh, go ahead.
Just say one thing, and this goes to the chief. Last Tuesday, one of your officers came, I'm on the planning commission, my name's Debbie Sidai. One of your officers, and I think his name was Souza, came to my house. My husband had a heart attack. I was out of town. Your officer went beyond the call of duty. He came in. There was nobody home. He was the first one. The ambulance took about 20 minutes to get there. And he kept my husband intact until he made it to the hospital. He ended up with a stent, and then on Friday had 2 additional stents. So he had 3 stents and is doing well. And I think your officer helped save my husband's life. So I'd like to thank you personally.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank the officer.
Well, I will, yep. It's probably Suhu. It's probably the one.
I don't know. My neighbor told me who it was, and it was a chaos all
I'm
day.
sure,
So
yeah.
I don't know if that's what I read, but I just want to say thanks.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
That's excellent. Any other comments? Okay, then we don't have anything under Public Works or an engineering, planning, and zoning, but we do have a planning commission report.
So you have no actions today. I was told very clearly by Amy to say that. We have no actions for you to take today.
Thank you.
But next week, but in 2 weeks,
Yes.
and according to the news story that I was just told to look up by our planner Leslie, on, was it the 27th, September 27th?
Yes.
September 27th, the 160 Clearview Avenue rezoning request is going to be brought in front of you and ask for your approval. As the article states, it passed our planning commission with a 5-2 vote. There was a lot of discussion from residents. There was a lot of concern from residents. There was concerns from some of the planning commissions, and we have one of our other planning commissioners here too as well, and I do believe that I think you were one of the deciding votes on this. But so yeah, 160, it's a rezoning. HFL, I believe, is working to, they want to turn it into an affordable senior living facility. Given that the property has a lot of interesting things going with it and going for it, it made sense for 5 of the members of the zoning board to vote yes, and I believe the other 2 wanted more time, but I do believe that when you have somebody that tells you that they're going to build this and they have done that in the past, you take that opportunity to strike while the iron's hot, as opposed to waiting and then finding out later that that now it's a different developer and anything can go there. So that's what you guys are looking forward to. I would probably add a couple hours for your September 27th meeting. So do you have any questions for me? Amy, did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so.
Leslie, did I miss anything?
The College Township official map, but we'll talk about that in a minute, so we're good. We're good.
Yeah, it's on the agenda right after you,
Yeah.
so.
Good,
Yeah.
there you go. So,
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Betsy, give.
Yes, I just wanted to thank you for your comments that reporter Haley Kynes picked up on. And I was just looking for them here. You probably read them. But they were very inclusionary and expressing an understanding of the difficulty of change for some people, but that the need to move ahead on this. So I really thank you for your articulate response.
Well, I have to say that I was not interviewed for it. They just pulled my words off
Right.
of the off of what I said during the arguments, and
yeah, and I like that that particular reporter really does take a focus on local issues and the process on it, not just the outcome. So I thought it was very good coverage for Patton Township. But yeah.
I would congratulate you. I just didn't.
And Leslie.
I don't know what you said.
oh, apparently she's got it up, and you only get like 3 CDTs a month or a year. So.
Yeah.
Okay, then we're up to the next thing, which is the official map.
College Township official map. Yep.
Yes. So College Township submitted the official map that is under review right now to the neighboring municipalities. Do we have can we pull that up?
Sure, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's just difficult to explain without a map. So the Planning Commission didn't really have any comments besides that it was well done. But I do want to highlight a few things. If you have any comments that you would like to forward on to College Township, we can do that. But the official map shows 3 connections to Patton Township. One of them is there's a proposed road that has a 60-foot right-of-way and a 10-foot bike lane or bikeway, which is the airport connector. That is what's proposed. There's also a bike amenity along Fox Hollow Road, and then there's a off-road multi-use paved trail that would be connecting the Arboretum and Toft Trees. And I believe the intention of that is to follow the old rail line. So those are the three things that connect College to Patton that would be significant for your review. So if you, like I said, if you have any comments that you'd like to forward on to College Township, we can do that.
And I would just bring up the Airport Connector Road. I had a meeting with CBICC a couple weeks ago, and there is movement afoot to have a meeting with Patton College and perhaps Benner Township officials to discuss the opportunities presented by our airport and also to look at our zoning to see if the three of us might be able to work together, because I think CBICC views the airport as a potential growth area for the county, which I agree with, and we want to see that we can all be supportive. So this is one of the first steps in that piece of the puzzle, but I think we're looking at trying to meet at some point on a staff level to continue these conversations.
Cool.
And ARL is planning to move into, a lot of it's going to be moving into the Innovation Park.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments? It's about time that the airport would take off.
It's exciting.
Okay, then we're up to, do we have any other comment? Do we have any comments to send it to College Township? Okay, we don't. Okay, then the administration.
Yeah, so last month's meeting, we had approved for the Georgetown Sinkhole Grant distribution, $25,000 to 4 units, 5 units, and then $18,000 to unit 458. With that, which left us with $12,000 in reserve for additional requests. So I've decided probably the best way to handle this grant is to have you always approve the disbursement, and then if someone asks, we can always say we approved it publicly. So we received information from the owner of Unit 434. This owner had $4,001.75 in eligible expenses, and we would recommend allocating $3,500 to this unit, which then leaves $8,500 in reserve.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously.
Elliot?
Yes.
Earlier, I just want to add that as we were giving our accolades to the staff, I also want to thank former Township Manager Doug Erickson for his work on this grant, also our solicitor Betsy Dupree, and the Delta Development Tracy, if I'm not, Teresa, who without all the pieces working, we weren't be able to move this forward. So just a appreciation and a thank you to all. Thank you.
Also, I wasn't,
Yes. Should time, go ahead.
yeah, I wasn't thinking, just voted on this, but curiosity, if the owner had 4,000 in eligible expenses, why just 3,500?
So in going back through, and I've been working with the residents that have been submitting requests, we have to have specific documentation because this is a state grant. And this person didn't necessarily have all of the documentation for all of the eligible expenses. So I picked out and honed in on the ones that I knew we had the necessary backup documentation. And this person has been a dream to work with. She's been wonderful, and she's very appreciative for any amount of money. So this covers the temporary shelter that they had to provide and some food.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else in administration?
Yes.
CIP.
So next is the capital improvement program.
Yes.
We put that on last month, we put it on this month, and this is just to get you thinking if there are any items. You certainly don't have to have anything tonight, and you certainly don't have to have anything in September necessarily. We'll be bringing that forward to you in October.
Yeah, if we're going to present the plan in the second meeting of October, which I think is when we normally do it, then I definitely will need something by the first meeting in October.
Yeah.
So so I can build it into the plan.
So I'll put this on again on the 27th as well.
Okay.
Okay. And then the last thing is the resolutions for the Municipal League Summit. We put the resolution packet with your agenda materials. We've had a change in our person who's going to vote. Betsy's actually going to vote for us at the meeting. So if you want to take a look at the resolutions, if you have any questions.
Yeah, and I haven't looked at them closely.
Yeah, and then we can discuss that again next month and maybe give Betsy some direction. That would be great. Or next week, or next meeting, not next month. 2 weeks, yes.
Now we're up to the consent agenda then, right?
Yep.
Does anybody want to take anything away?
No,
Or make a motion?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
It's been moved, it's been seconded. Susan, did you have a comment?
Nope.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Brings us to 9, the really exciting part of the meeting, the manager's report.
So just a couple of things to note from my written report. We did a 3-month extension on our energy contract in August. There's some moving parts with the SPPA, which I think we're probably going to end up having to talk about in October.
And you've got that, I'm sorry. That was really good.
Yes. Yes, Larry did the report, and then there's been some other late breaking stuff on that. So we'll know more in October, and I think the general forum might be getting an update on that as well.
Yeah, I apologize. I got an email and asking for that, and I'm assuming you responded to the email, got the information. On the electric use, the use of electricity. I'll check on my email. I thought, sorry about that. It was a little brain fart there.
Okay.
Not to worry. I'll check.
Okay.
I apologize.
And then Chief, not related to that, Chief Jolly and I met with representatives from the airport. We were having an issue with Uber drivers congregating on Box Hill Road. We had a very eye-opening experience at the airport. It was really interesting and learned a lot about rideshare operations and how they work. The long and the short of it is, at the end of the meeting, they decided to extend a reverse geofence that keeps the Uber drivers. They were causing some issues right around, congregating around the airport, so they extended the geofence, and we've pushed them down more towards Cricklewood, with the thought process being there's on-street parking there, we can better manage them in that location. And also because the Uber drivers sort of do a loop, like a circuit. They do the airport, they go downtown, they go to the mega bus station. So this might take them out of that loop because they'll get other calls if they're in a more centrally located place outside of the airport. So the reverse geofence, the airport people were great to work with, the authority, and the reverse geofence is now in place. So we'll keep an eye on it and see if that helps with the issue that we were having. We know we talked about the emergency notification for the boil water advisory. There's going to be a meeting September 27th, the municipal managers, the water authority, and other county emergency management officials to talk about perhaps using Code Red and the regional notification system to better push out notifications to folks when these things happen. So I can give you an update at our meeting on the 27th as to how that meeting goes. DEP did an audit of our stormwater program, and I have to give a little shout out to our former engineer because she did a great job getting everything together, and we did not have any findings from our audit of that program, which is great. We did receive the revised Toftrees Resort plan. The plan still has a lot of comments on it. Leslie and Nicole spent 3 hours last week looking at it. Yes, that was a lot. So that plan is back in the hands of the engineer, and we're hopeful that perhaps it'll move forward in October to the October Planning Commission, and then perhaps your second meeting in October. They're trying to meet deadlines, and we're sensitive to that, but we have to make sure that the plan is in decent shape before it moves forward. On the public works side, the paving work looks amazing. Ken took me out today on a little tour to look at the curbs and the paving. They're wrapping that up, and it looks great, so we're pretty excited about that. The truck that was down at ODB being fitted with the new collection unit was completed, and it should be placed back in use to collect leaves this fall, which of course is big for us. The road crew is finally back to full staff. We lost a staff member over the summer who went out into Penns Valley to be a roadmaster there. So our new employee is Ronald Brooks. He started Monday. He seems very nice. We have our business license now to go out and apply herbicides in township right-of-ways. We had an employee that did all the necessary certifications for that. And we have been talking a lot about spongy moths around here. We're doing the egg mass counts now. We're actually regionally, the managers have started a discussion about if we want to share the cost of spraying, because last year I think we were the only ones who sprayed. And the spongy moth is pretty significant. So we've had conversations with Half Moon and Harris and Spring and some others about maybe doing a cooperative program. And then last thing on the agenda, which was our first thing here tonight, Ms. Melee was here to talk about the fencing, and we have pictures of the fencing that was installed in the Gaynor Drive parklet. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Does anyone have any questions?
Amy, on the engineering, when you said the former engineer that we need to thank, are you talking about Alex?
Yes.
Okay. I always like to give people their justice.
Yes.
Thank you.
That brings us to committee reports. Anyone have any additions or changes to add to any of these committee reports?
I just want to...
Yes. Betsy.
Go ahead, Betsy.
In a minute. So the Climate Action and Sustainability Committee met just on Monday, and I haven't written up that report yet, but I do want to give everyone a heads up. We had two items to discuss. One is quite sort of manna. We have applied to participate in the DEP's Shared Energy Manager Program, and there's a very strong likelihood that we will be accepted for that program because a lot of other areas that this would be applicable to have already had the services of this energy manager. So it's like having a consultant helping you make decisions on your climate action adaptation plan without charging it. So all this is from the state. Pam Adams will be going through that with the energy manager the next, it's about a year. So it's really quite exciting. And they'll probably start with COG buildings and vehicles first, but the step before doing anything is to make an assessment, do benchmarks of what the energy usage is. Some of that will be, built on the research and calculations that Pam Adams did in developing the climate action plan. So first an assessment, and then looking at COG, vehicle and buildings, and then looking at municipal. And from that, hoping to get very specific plans of action. But the next item was more, I should say, committee members were more involved in it, and it's something that the populace here in the Central Region is going to be very involved in, at least those who are involved in contract out to the waste management. We're in the process of redoing our contract. We're 2 years out, a year and a half out, but Shelley Motto is doing Herculean work with the contract and working with Ted Onifrak from the transfer station and others. We were tasked, the committee was tasked with answering several questions, and I just want to give everyone a heads up. I'll write it all out. We don't need to go into too much of the weeds here, but it is something that is going to impact every one of our citizens, and so I think it's going to be helpful for us to be on top of it now, later, and when it finally hits the streets. So we were asked about the automatic carts. Are we going to do automatic cart, combination of automatic carts and bags, or just automatic carts or just bags? It was recommended by the consultant that we do the carts. We were talked through that. We are going to go with the carts. There's been tremendous success nationally using the carts, and once a driver is trained, you're very adept at getting in between very small places with these arms that pick up a trash can. It would involve, one of the drivers is, two drivers, as it were, on this decision are both cost. and safety. And I had thought that the safety was with the workers who are handling the trash and sharp objects, but in fact it is the weight of the bags, getting that into the cart, so into the trash truck. So the automatic cans will eliminate that.
Yes.
That gets to the matter of, if we're having an automatic arms, we're going to have carts to go with. So we decided to go with carts. It's recommended that the trash haulers company own those carts, so they will purchase those and give them to customers. Then there was the number of carts, or the number, or I should say, the number of options in size. So starting with 95, going down to a middle one, well, Mama Bear, Papa Bear, and Baby Bear. So we are going to give people 3 choices, and there'll be various ways that they roll those out, as it were, and then people can make a change throughout the year. So everybody having a cart, it's going to be a big change. Outdoor services, I believe currently anyone with ADA is provided free service. It's a state law that they have to have it. That will continue. And by the way, I should actually preface everything I'm saying by the fact, by the overarching work behind this. We are coming up with what to put into the contract. So they have decided that it's going to be more efficient to send out for an RFP, request for proposal, instead of an RFD, which is a request for, I can't remember what the D stands for. Disposal. But it's much more open-ended. So this whole, the whole number of options that we're talking about is one to allow us hopefully to get more than one bid on a contract. But no matter who we get, all of the things that we're talking about will probably be implemented. Yard waste is going to change a little bit, but we're still working out details on that. They will no longer allow people to bag grass, or to bag leaves, I think now you're not allowed. So that is going to be a change we're going to have to be in for. The big item, and I'm going to want board input on this, maybe if not now, then certainly by the next meeting, Christmas tree disposal. It's they did a survey, I guess the refuse and recycling program did a survey about a year ago. Oh, it's this year, a while ago. The vast majority of people in the area served, the 4 municipalities, prefer having the Christmas trees picked up. So we'll be having a discussion with our committee and with our respective boards about how important this is. There are going to be a number of options, whether they're picked up at a house, whether you have to actually call ahead to have it picked up, whether residents take the trees to a staging area, wherever that would, enough area for trees. And the big question for Patton Township, and I'm looking right at Ken, could possibly our chipper and Amy, our staff, handle the picking up and disposing of Christmas trees? We're, I believe, the only municipality, at least from what you said last time, that even has that capability.
We probably already dispose of 30 to 35% of the Christmas trees in Patton Township.
Ah, okay.
Because there are a lot of folks that'll leave the tree up longer, and the disposal time whenever the carrier picks those up has passed. So they'll place those out with the brush pickup, which we pick up brush every month of the year, as long as we don't have a large amount of snow and so forth, that we're not able to, get to that. But we do collect brush every month at the beginning of the month, first week of the month.
Yeah, right.
So, and all of our brush now is collected on site whole, and it's hauled to the recycle center, and then the recycle center actually brings in a large tub grinder, and it's all ground at that location at one time.
So that's changed, because you used to have a chipper go around.
Yeah,
We used to.
but we're actually more efficient and a little faster, and it's much safer.
Okay, yes, I bet, okay. Great, so I just have to read this here. The contractor we will probably ask the contractor to provide for a special one-time collection during the second or third week in January. This is apparently quite an expensive service because they are dealing with objects that, increase the load of the waste that they're picking up. So I may come back to you and really get some solid input on, whether we continue with this, what options we explore in the township. Who would have thought that waste management was something we so take for granted and yet so many parts to it. So thank you for letting me explain those, and I'll get a list of those that you can pour over at your leisure.
Okay.
That's it.
Elliot, we had a public safety committee meeting that was canceled, but Amy was explaining that the township managers are going to be meeting to talk about the boil water alert. And we, as a township, continue to ask our residents to put on their phone code red. It is such an important app to have, especially through the severe thunderstorm warnings. We had a tornado warning and watch, and now with the boil water alert, we're asking that our residents take heed and go on their app store and put code red on it. Thank you.
One of the methods they have been using would be to put door hangers on people's doors when this happened, and I have three problems with that. One is if it happens at 11 o'clock at night, that can be a security problem. Two, if you don't read it, if you don't see it till the next day, you may drink the water or whatever and have a problem and you didn't even know it. And third, the door hanger, if you're on vacation, people know you're away, and so that's another security problem. So the idea of encouraging people to use a system that works is good.
Sometimes you get invisible door hangers, like apparently myself and most of the residents around me.
Yep.
And yeah, I guess they said they put it out there. Anyway.
That was another problem. Who was actually contacted?
Technology has changed since they wrote their response to emergency plan.
Okay. And the other question that the Water Authority wanted us to put out as a township is to please update your phone numbers with the Water Authority. That was one of their concerns, that they didn't have everybody's information. So we decided as a township that we would make sure we continue to relay that message, but we also need that the township managers and all of us will be meeting to come together to a better system of communicating the Water Authority alerts, because not everyone, as my colleague said, got a phone call or a door tag on their door.
And to update your information with the Water Authority, you have to call their main number during business hours.
Yeah.
So there isn't a way to do it online. I looked because we put the information out. There isn't a link, so yeah, their system might be.
Well, maybe that's something that needs to be fixed.
Yes, a little old, yes.
Maybe that's something they need to change.
Yes.
Hadn't been mentioned yet, but the one problem with phone calls is that apartment complexes,
Yep.
the phone they have is for the owner of the apartment or the manager of the apartment, not the individual apartment tenants.
Right.
So a phone call is not going to work for any of them.
And that's where an app like Code Red, and when Pam, Elliott, and I met with the Water Authority, we talked about Code Red.
Yes.
But that's where an app like Code Red is great, because we have a very transient community, but you can educate that the students need to put, and the grad students and young professionals need to put that on their phone. And then if you push out, Sean can do it by geographic location, you push out the notification, you get it on your phone. I also don't answer my phone if I don't know the person calling.
Neither do we.
And I think there's a lot of people that are like that. There were a lot of people like Sutan that didn't get the notifications at all. We didn't get the notification here at the township building until the next day. There was a door hanger when we came in. I read the article, thankfully, and texted the chief to tell him to tell the officers not to drink the water, but yeah, we didn't really have any way of knowing here either.
Right.
But if you do have the app on your phone, it should work.
Yeah, if we use Code Red, and Code Red is great because we test that every year, right? And then Sean goes in and takes out the numbers that aren't being picked up or whatever, runs the report. So, and we can run reports and know specifically who got it, who didn't get it, and what the reach was. And it also can come through, like when we did the last test, it comes through on your email as well. So it's not just your phone number, it kind of hits all your notifications.
So we look forward to, as on the Public Safety Committee, we look forward to your feedback and your comments so we can move forward. It's a partnership all across that board.
Yep.
You know, and that's what everyone has to be online and on board about. This was serious.
Yep.
And we got to do better.
Yep.
Thank you, Amy.
At the Lucy Committee, I thought we were going to talk a little bit about the problems with our planning efforts, but I don't recall that actually came up, which surprised me. And that's all from that committee. Any other committees?
Well, Finance. Finance Committee will begin its detailed budget review meetings September 28th, right?
Yeah.
That will be the first of 3 review meetings, and then the 4th meeting will be a wrap-up.
Okay. Which now brings us to, is there any other business? What else did I forget? Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved that we adjourn. Second? We're adjourned.
Can we eat now?